So that's where we circle back to where we started with the concept of a wellness camp that RFK Jr. talked about in his confirmation hearings. Much was made of it last year when he was being confirmed, and talking about sending people who'd been diagnosed with mental illnesses to wellness camps to detox from these drugs and learn different means to cope with their challenges.
And look, I mean, we can tie this to our conversation from last week on HRT and mifepristone, and it's really the same story. They're rebuilding coverture in this way, and so I want you to sort of dig in a little more to the news from Monday and RFK Jr. You know, again, you know, more than twice as many women take these drugs than men. He's calling it deprescribing. Can you just talk a little bit more about how this actually impacts women and in a more marked way than men?
In my newsletter yesterday, which was Wednesday, we're recording on Thursday. I always like to say that because this runs on Sunday. So if you look for my newsletter from Wednesday, I talk about this, and I actually dug into statistics that are hosted by the National Institutes of Health. Women are more likely to seek therapy. You know, in our society, it is a sign of weakness for a man to say, I have issues and need to go talk to somebody about them, or I can't regulate my responses and I need to figure out why that is. So 20-something% of the women in the study group had sought therapy for various challenges they had and were taking antidepressants or other mood-altering medications, versus 13-point-something% of the men in the study that the NIH did. And that mirrored how much more women are willing to go and seek help than men are. It's not masculine to admit that you have these problems. So part of this disparity comes from how we train men in society to deny these things and not seek help. So it's not necessarily that women are weaker and need these drugs. It's that women are strong enough to say, I need to go talk to somebody and find out what's happening with me. And sometimes that means they are prescribed these drugs. So that's what I found in digging into this data. So RFK Jr. saying, I'm going to come after these drugs. After last week, the EPA saying we're coming after the oral birth control pill, basically, through testing the water. You know, one of the things that a lot of people may not understand about the oral birth control pill and hormone replacement therapy is it's also a means of regulating the hormone fluctuations that naturally come from being a woman. You know, sometimes a woman can have these, I mean, I've called myself hormonally challenged my whole life. I've always dealt with some pretty extreme hormone fluctuations at different points, and you can't predict them. I mean, you live in a female household. You understand, you know, you can't predict how these things are going to overtake you. They just happen. That's just part of being female. And so oral contraceptives and hormone replacement therapy are means of regulating that. But sometimes it's not enough, especially during perimenopause, which can start as young as in your mid-30s if you're a woman. So very often women will go and find out that they need extra help to deal with some of those things, and they're prescribed antidepressants or other kinds of mood-altering drugs to help with the fluctuations that happen in the brain from these transitions. And these transitions are uncontrollable. You know, they just happen.
Yeah.
So it's not a coincidence that the regime has now spent the past 2 weeks attacking all the different ways that women have found from 20th and 21st century medicines to cope with what our bodies naturally do to us.